In this series of reviewing different zones in the classic Sonic games, most of the time it's always me defending zones that are generally disliked. I defended Labyrinth Zone at the start of the series, defended Metropolis Zone for a period of time in my Green Hill Zone video, and defended Marble Zone as well. Even Wing Fortress, a level from Sonic 2 that is generally a level people write off as mediocre at best, is actually my favorite zone in the game. But Sandopolis Zone? Nah man, I just can't. There's just no saving this zone because it's simply that bad. Now, it isn't the worst zone in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but that's not really saying much considering your competition are these two. Either way, let's just get into the things that Sandopolis actually manages to do somewhat decently, because it's really gonna need it. Well, the first thing I'd like to mention that Sandopolis does have on its good side is actually the music. Now, not only does the Sandopolis Zone soundtrack not fit the theme of the Pyramid Desert vibe that Sandopolis gives off, but in the overall gist of things, the soundtrack isn't great. Yes, it has its own good moments like here, but overall, it's not at the level that zones like Angel Island and Blue Fortress have in terms of music. I mean, yeah, it's not completely bad, it's a 7 out of 10 at best and 3 at worst, so it's not a zone soundtrack I dislike, but I can assure you you'll never see me listen to the zone's music outside of the game. Funny enough, you won't even hear the music, especially in Act 2 because of a certain gimmick we'll get to later. One other thing I can't particularly say is good but not bad is the background, and the thing is I can't even say that about both of the acts. The Act 1 background is pretty good, having the huge pyramid, the nice purple to orange gradient with the sun setting, and the background clashing properly with the ground in a way that doesn't make it too obtrusive, but a lot of that isn't true with the Act 2 background. For one, you're now inside a pyramid, so the outside light and general less offensive feel is gone. What replaces it is its extremely grainy background. There really isn't anything I can truly say to make you understand what I'm trying to say, but if you look at it, you can clearly see what I'm talking about. There's too much colors, way too much shadow detail, and it ends up making a lot of the background look charred and burnt. And it's obviously not what they're trying to do, and it gets way worse when some certain gimmicks come into the picture. Yes, the Act 1 background is a pleasure to look at, especially with the heatwave effect, and the music does have its good moments. There's a really justified reason why people call Sandopolis Zone the worst zone in Sonic & Knuckles. Let's talk about that too. Man, where can I even start with the horrible things with Sandopolis? There's so many problems with the zone. We should, as we always do, start off with the boss fights because of the sheer disappointment I got from these set of bosses. Look, I don't expect a lot from classic Sonic boss fights because most of the time they aren't great. But these, the mini-boss and boss of the zone are so horribly disappointing that I just have to point them out. The mini-boss is a rock golem that literally does not attack you. You just knock him over repeatedly, or just jump over to the sandpit and spam jump. He just jumps over to you, so if you're in the sandpit, he just kills himself. Or if you're knocking him over, he doesn't retaliate or anything. Just straight up gets pushed over and does nothing about it. That being said, there is a way to die in the fight, so it's not completely useless, but you'd have to be AFK to somehow lose. And the boss might actually be worse. Yes, at least the boss has a laser attack, but that's if you've actually seen it. The attack is also so uselessly slow and unthreatening. And between attacks, he just stops when you hit his weak point, and nothing else stops you. Sure, if you really want to be technical, then the spikes under his attack point can hit you off, but your links splatter where you fall and can just bounce right back. And it's such a shame because the potential for these bosses could be massive. Imagine a sand tornado or something similar having to maybe home and attack the right enemies to get to the boss, or actually having the huge golem for the boss actually move swiftly or anything cool like that. But instead, we get a useless raw golem and an immobile wall of rock that's super easy to kill. So yes, the bosses suck again. And also, the level design is abysmal. Look, I get it. Having a normal level with no gimmicks while trying to make it interesting isn't really easy. But bad gimmicks are not the solution. Having slides is cool, but having to go up them isn't fun in any way. In the beginning of Act 2, there's an infinite loop section where you need to know which slide to go on proceed and for what. It's confusing, offers no reward, and it's essentially just a waste of time. We have these stupid ledge things that you can grab onto, but again, it's just a huge waste of time with no reward for it. Maybe just getting rings on the way, but no, not even that. What makes it worse is that alternatively, you can just drop down and get to the same destination easier and faster. Look at the vines at the very beginning of Angel Island. It's an alternative route lets you reach the upper path faster, and rewards you with an invincibility monitor. That's how you make a good gimmick and use it properly, and this isn't. And you know what? It really doesn't get much better because in Act 2, things get a lot worse. Firstly, we have the pushing machines, and they just make things annoying. You basically need to push levers over in order to progress in the level, and it would have been way better if they were just straight up removed. Having the fact that a gimmick is better off not existing as opposed to it being there is not a good thing, and that perfectly suits Sandopolis Zone's gimmicks it shows. And the most annoying thing about the lever gimmick is no matter where you are or how fast you pass the gate that you use the lever to open, as long as the lever isn't done pushing itself back, it makes this extremely annoying sound. Also, the main gimmick that Sandopolis is known for needs to be addressed, because there's another type of lever you can pull down in order for the lights to not go out on you and have ghosts come out at you. If they charge you and you're not in a ball, then they hit you and you lose rings. But that's not even the problem, because to get to the darkest state takes a while, and to get the ghost to actually attack you takes almost just as long. The problem I have is linked to another horrible thing that Sandopolis Act 2 has, being its extremely charry and grainy background. Like I said, a lot of the background looks really dark and it makes it kind of annoying when ground tiles use darker palettes. You know what pairs horribly with that? That's right, it's when the whole zone gets dark. Look, I don't have problem with visually seeing in zones generally. Not most. Carnival Night's visual design makes no sense and looks ugly. That's the problem I should expect from a classic Sonic zone. Not simply being unable to see. Either other than that, the level design and gimmicks just get way worse. And if that still doesn't assure you that this level sucks, the two levels that Sandopolis is sandwiched between, Flying Battery and Lava Reef, have way better level design, better gimmicks, better music, oh my god, better music, better boss fights, basically better everything. So when you ask someone what the worst zone is, it really isn't challenged because of how abysmal it is. Sandopolis Zone is a perfect example of how majority of the community can actually be right about something, and I can say without much doubt that yes, Sandopolis Zone is the worst zone in Sonic & Knuckles.